So it's been a busy week for the MCU. I mean, the strike with just recently ended. The actors are back to work. Hollywood is back to work, and as a result of that, there's a lot of casting news that's starting to come out. Now, this isn't official, and I'm sure you guys have probably seen this elsewhere. That and it's been all over the trades. They've all been mentioning over the course of basically the whole week. It seems like that Pedro Pascal is potentially going to be our Mr. Fantastic, and they keep saying that it's not quite confirmed, but it's basically done, but it's not quite official yet. So just working off that assumption, let's just say that, like unless they have some big issue with scheduling, which they could, because Pedro Pascal is currently working on Gladiator 2, as a result of which The Last of Us might get delayed, a second season might get delayed because apparently Gladiator 2 is taking priority on his schedule. So the last of HBO team has to work around it for Pedro Pascal. So he's a busy person. And that might become an issue because Fantastic Four was originally supposed to go into production in the spring of 2024. And Matt Shakman has said this isn't some speculation, and it was meant to start filming at Pinewood Studios in London. So I wanted to start with that because there's other news beyond just Pedro Pascal and the MCU, but let's just start with Pedro Pascal potentially as Mr. Fantastic. And Angelina, I want to ask you first, what do you think about this casting? Marvel's first family, these characters like literally were like part of Marvel's like first comic series, or one of their first comic book series. Human Torch is like the original Marvel character. So now we have Mr. Fantastic, who we have seen a couple of iterations of before on screen. But this is the first one that's going to be connected to the MCU. What do you think about Pedro Pascal as that Mr. Fantastic?
I feel like I have referred to Pedro Pascal as Daddy on the show before. I stand by this. And also, I used to have the biggest crush on Lone Griffith from the 2005 Fantastic Four rendition, which is still I never saw the 2015 movie. So Roland was making a reference to it before we started the show, and I was just I can see Michael B. Jordan. Of course, we need to cast him in any movie, always, ever.
If we can.
We have all the reasons.
But make it make sense.
Stunning. But I had no idea what he was talking about because I had never seen the 2015 last iteration of the Fantastic Four. So I am tried and true on the Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, Fantastic Four. That's why I was so confused when Chris Evans came back as Captain America, but it's fine. We've moved past this. But I am here for Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic. You put one character that I was had the biggest crush on as a kid, and then an actor that I just have a crush on now today, and I'm just wow, of course they were meant to be together. Of course. I'm here for it.
Yeah, the Invisible Woman. That's just who I've really had a problem with. They whitewashed Jessica Alba. They whitewashed her. It's so funny if you watch those movies, and she's so blonde with the blue eye contacts.
Jessica Alba really got whitewashed in almost all of her movies.
Yeah,
which is
but
insane.
and it's not they just want to know that she's And then for some reason, Kate Mara is Michael B. Jordan's sister, which never made any sense. I know she's supposed to be adopted. That was my problem. I'm just going to keep going, but I'm not going to.
So you had an issue with all of the Fantastic Four renditions.
I think most people have had problems with all the Fantastic Four movies. Yeah. There's always, you can always find something positive about them. I say that about anything.
There are moments. There's some sequences,
of course,
flying sequence. I think the Silver Surfer had some moments. The first one had some.
Love Doug Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, the latest Fantastic Four movie, I personally thought it was a really good movie up until the third act, when I think they ran out of ideas.
Yeah.
But when you look at all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, maybe it had something to do with the fact that the director who was working on the movie was basically either he kicked himself off, depending on who you believe, or he got fired from the movie at some point during production. And I think that just completely tanked whatever potential that had. But
there was really good potential at the beginning. The only thing that I like from that movie is the very end.
Movie,
the very end.
The worst score.
Can I
read you the score really quick?
Well, let me say my thought, and then
Okay.
you can tell me the score. But my favorite moment from that movie is that it's at the very end, and they're all hanging out on a railing, and they're like, "What do we call each other, guys?" And the thing is like, "I don't know, but it's fantastic." And Miles Teller is like, "Whoa, what? What do you just say?"
Yeah, that was a very
I
cheesy.
said it was Fantastic Four.
Yes.
Hated it.
See, this is
Cracked
where
me up.
I will give the
Ooh.
Marvels credit because they could have come up with some because they teased it the whole movie with Miss Marvel coming up with names for Photon,
Oh
but they
yeah,
never settled on it and they never called her Photon the whole movie. And I was like, oh, okay. They actually were self-disciplined in one way because it's like
yeah,
in Man of Steel, they don't call him Superman until like the third act of the movie. And even then, they're not calling him Superman, they're calling him the Superman. So, like, it's not
yeah,
a proper noun association. So I think like it's always better when you do it that way rather than like do what they did in
yeah.
Fantastic Four movie.
They're
Anyway,
What do we
like,
call each
we're
other,
gonna come
guys?
up with our own name. Well, I think
Yeah,
in most superhero, I feel like usually the hero himself never comes up with a name, right? It's usually like they'll either like say like they're calling you, or you'll see it in the news, like they'll like
yeah.
give like articles in which why do they always feature newspaper articles in these movies, especially the old ones?
Because you can't name yourself. A nickname
Yeah,
that you
and so
give
they
yourself doesn't. I tried to go by Naylor in middle school. That didn't go. That didn't work
they were like,
because I said it, because I started it. But if you have journaling who
yeah,
are paid to make these iconic marketing names, then that's what sticks. And then
yeah,
usually they're like something funny or annoying and they try to make a joke about it. But yeah, it's a lot of newspaper. They try to like keep going with the newspapers
yeah.
in recent things. You're right.
And like, who actually reads the newspaper anymore? Like, just
A
show
BuzzFeed
me like a
article.
still of the news at least, or like somebody watching
Yeah.
the news on their phone seems more realistic instead of like this really old man on a bus reading a newspaper from 3 days ago that he was somehow able to buy somewhere. Like, I don't even know where you could buy a newspaper anymore. Where do
Yeah.
you
I
buy
want
them?
to I want to see like some teenager looking on BuzzFeed and it's like
Yeah.
top 10 coolest moments from so and so.
We should be hired for these ideas. That's what I think,
Or
Roland.
they
by the
could
way,
just
that
hire young people.
Yeah,
that
that's
Naylor nickname is gonna come back to haunt you on the show at some point. You know that, right? Like it's gonna
Well, do you know what Naylor is? It's just rolling
no, well,
backwards.
it's what spelling are we using here?
God, Roland.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
just rolling backwards.
Even Dan's face right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to read you
That's
guys
not
these
how
scores
I would
because
pronounce it though.
I've
That's why
never.
I'm confused.
What? How do you pronounce it? And then tell us the ratings of the Fantastic
Yes.
Four, Angelina. How would you pronounce it, Dan?
All right, so it's rolling backwards. I would probably do like what they did with like Namor, like so it would be Naylor, a Nalor.
I
Maylor.
mean, I
Yeah.
feel like you're trying to force yourself not to have the same pronunciation
No,
because you just
I
called
just think it
yourself
would
off a
sound better that way.
No,
Naylor.
I think I'd probably pronounce
Naylor.
Naylor. Naylor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Naylor. Nalor.
I think I would probably change the
Maybe in a different
pronunciation to
language you
avoid any
pronounce O,
confusion
but
on
Yeah.
purpose with a different spelling of the name,
Nalor. Yeah.
Naylor.
Nalor.
That's weird.
That
No.
sounds too fancy, and I don't think I like that.
Yeah, it definitely would be Naylor.
All right.
1000%.
Well,
What's
cool.
so how bad was that movie
Okay,
that
so
we
that
forgot about?
movie in total brought in $167.9 million in the box office. It was distributed by 20th Century Studios, just in case you guys didn't know that. And it had a whopping 9% score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 4.3 out of 10 on IMDb. 9%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like when the
Was
DCEU
that like
movies were getting like 13 and 17. Somehow
the audience
Fox
score of
decided
that
to
movie
make it
is only
worse.
18% out of 100,000 plus. Wow, these people hated this movie, which makes me so sad that Miles Teller was given another chance because he's such a phenomenal actor. And that's
Yeah.
how sometimes it's really sad because you see these truly phenomenal actors or these truly phenomenal directors or these truly phenomenal writers that get caught up in these shitty ass projects and they can never escape from like the demise of it. Like they can just never come out of that hole again.
Yeah.
So it always makes me really happy when people do, because quite frankly, I haven't seen Kate Mara really. I feel like she was in a lot of stuff and then she kind of like died out. Like I haven't seen her in anything.
Yeah, she did this like steamy drama with Nick Robinson where she plays like the teacher.
Oh, I did see that on Hulu, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the last thing I saw her in. That was like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, it looked very similar to like a movie that J-Law did, and I was like, okay, cool. Oh, like that. There was that Ben Affleck movie from this year.
What was that? Sorry. With 3 people, sometimes it's hard not to talk over each other.
I know. It's almost impossible.
Well, anyway, getting back to, I think we completely got away from Pedro Pascal and Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, stretchy dad.
I think the only potential issue here with him actually signing up for the role officially would have to do with his scheduling, which is a result of the actors and writer strikes just delaying everything. Otherwise, I think they would have probably already finished filming his involvement in Gladiator 2, and they might have already been prepping to do The Last of Us, at which point, because outside of those projects, I don't think he has anything else that's really big that's going on, at least not live action. He might be doing some voice work for some projects.
But Gladiator 2 and
Last
then
of Us.
The Last of Us, yeah.
Last of Us, right.
Filming that for next year.
Yeah.
So the problem becomes if they were to stay on schedule to start filming Fantastic Four in the spring of next year, right around the same time as Superman Legacy goes into production, like these movies, they require you to really just be dedicated to being on sound stages for months at a time. And like, it's not like he's working on some indie movie and then he's doing another big movie. Gladiator 2 is a big movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if they can figure out the scheduling issues potentially, then there's probably not a lot of people out there who would look at Pedro Pascal and say, oh, he's too old to play Mr. Fantastic. Because I think if you're going to make him the smartest man in the MCU, then he can't be like Miles Teller, how old Miles Teller was back when they made that Fantastic Four movie. Because you need him. I think you want to introduce the Fantastic Four as an experienced team rather than one that kind of comes together in the modern day.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So yeah, from that perspective, I mean, if they do end up making this casting happen, then it's going to make me all that more excited about what these other characters are going to be. Who are they going to be played by?
Yeah. Pascal also has the wings, which Reed Richards
naturally
has. Yeah, naturally.
Yeah.
You don't even need to worry about like putting that on. Like it's just there.
Hair. Hair's good.
Hair's good.
Yeah. HMU can sit down. They'll be fine.
Have questions how they're going to announce the oldest MCU family, right? One of the smartest MCU characters, and then say, well, where were they the whole time?
Oh, Quantum
whole universe.
Yeah, I've heard some
all
good theories.
This shit happened. Where were they? They had to be somewhere else.
Yeah, I've heard some good theories. A lot of it being around like Quantum kind of being, like actually good Quantum rather than Quantumanium. But like I think Reed Richards was supposed to be like developing a ship to go into the quantum realm. And so he brings his team for various reasons. And then they go in and then they kind of have like that time shift that Scott Lang does in Endgame or Infinity. Yeah, an Endgame.
An Endgame, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot more pronounced. But I've heard that's a theory.
That they just they were on a different sort of
like they were on a research trip, and then they were having difficulty trying to come back, and when they did, it's like 60 years later.
That is the only
I definitely think that could
explain it. Like they have to explain that in this new movie. They can't just bring them back and just say, here are new characters, because we all know that those characters have always existed within this universe. Like if they don't do a really good job of that, I will be very mad. Like mad.
Yeah. Also, Ben Grimm is Jewish.
Who?
The Thing.
Ben Grimm. Yep.
Okay.
That's
Cool.
I think
Just calling
didn't
that
they haven't changed that before, have they? Like I think that's played into the previous 2 iterations.
I'm just making sure.
Because I don't think they really emphasized it much, but I do believe
they
at
don't.
least in the 2015 version, I think it was
Yeah.
it was included because I remember a scene or two. Like what's the hat that
Yamaka?
Yes. Sorry, I'm not. I think we saw him wearing that in a couple of scenes. So like I was like, they weren't really like it wasn't integrated in any meaningful way into the story, but like definitely I think it was like like that.
They're always there. But this is really important that it's a pronounced thing for you, Roland. Is it pronounced in the comics?
It's not necessarily a pronounced thing, but it is, and this is definitely a weird time to talk about it. But I remember having a conversation with Andrew Frankel about this when we were talking about Moon Knight, and it was just kind of this glossed over thing. And I just know it just should be more pronounced. It shouldn't just be like, hey, fun fact, and then like moving on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I was going to mention about like how do you make them fit into the world of the MCU? You can easily just, all the actors that they use for the younger version of like well, not the younger, technically the older version of Tony Stark's dad, like Howard Stark, like so not played by like Dominic, I'm forgetting his name, but like who played him in the original first the first Avenger, but like the dad that you see in like the flashbacks and Iron Man movies. And then like you saw that I think like you saw an older Peggy Carter and you saw like a younger Hank Pym, and they had that scene where like he breaks his nose. I'm forgetting which movie this is.
This is Ant-Man.
Ant-Man, right. So they could do one of those scenes where you see like Pedro Pascal and all those like characters and like we're about to go on this mission, and then they disappear, and then you skip to the present day, and here they are.
They kind of do that with Captain America too. Like but I guess that's more a part of Captain America's original storyline. So it was already there, but like I need that to see this movie. You had another necessary requirement. What was it? Just that
that they should Susan and Johnny Storm should actually be siblings. Like that. It just seems weird that they wouldn't be actual siblings. Like I just didn't think in the Fantastic movie that it added anything or tried to make the story richer. It was just kind of like this thing of Michael B. Jordan's in this. But don't worry, Invisible Woman is still Kate Mara. And it was like, okay, I don't know why that matters. You could have had a Black Invisible Woman, but that's me. I also heard, this is another rumor, Javier Bardem is going to be playing Dr. Doom. I thought that was very interesting.
Ooh, I like.
Yes.
Evil.
I mean, Javier Bardem in anything would be great.
Well, I don't know, because he kind of took away from the Little Mermaid for me, but like that's
he's in the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, he's the King Neptune, right? Isn't that? Yeah.
Is he? He's a father.
Oh, I didn't watch it. I'm bad about Disney properties.
I don't know. I had like a lengthy review on it. Takeaway is like I don't know why they did certain things.
Yeah.
I had so many issues with the movie, and none of it had to do with Chloe Holly. Like it wasn't her at all. Like I love her. She was awesome. It was basically everything else about this movie was just really bad, including Javier Bardem. Like including him, he was really bad. But I feel like the script was bad, and there was just like a lot of things that I was just like, why? And then he's like obviously very Latino, and he has like every single one of his kids is like a completely different ethnicity. So it was like another one of those like like none of his kids look anything like him. It was very strange.
Interesting. Dan, do you have a fan cast for any of the Fantastic Four members? Like if Pedro Pascal and Javier Bardem are in it, who is another addition that you would like to see?
I do
this is never going to happen, but I would just love to see Chris Evans back as as Human Torch. Yes.
So you want Chris Evans to play Human Torch again?
There'd be some maybe
Human Torch.
Well, like it's a totally new cast except for Chris Evans, who was Captain America.
No, well, think about it, right? Because like especially if they go the route of the multiverse way of introducing them, like and like spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the end of the Marvels, we get to see Kelsey Grammer's Beast at the end in credit scene of the Marvels.
I did see that spoil.
So if they go the route of they're coming from another universe and then all these, you know, all the timelines get collapsed into like the sacred timeline eventually and the multiverse is gone, and that's how the Fantastic Four come into the MCU. I mean, hey, Chris Evans, we know he's eventually going to probably come back to the MCU, but the big twist would be he's not Captain America anymore. He's playing Human Torch. I think that would be fun. I think the Fantastic Four, the original cast from the early 2000s movies, I think it was cast really, really well, especially I'm forgetting the name of the actor they cast for The Thing, like in the early 2000s, Michael Chiklis, I think.
He was in The Shield.
He was like the perfect fit for that role, I thought. And so it's difficult. I mean, I think if you go with Pedro Pascal now, then you're gonna have to kind of figure out like for chemistry tests, like who the Invisible Woman would be, and it sort of builds out from there. I don't have anybody off the top of my head.
In every iteration, Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman are together, right?
Yes.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, because they get married and they have 2 kids together.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
And they could probably age them up to already be part of the Young Avengers movie they teased at the end of the Marvel.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Probably.
Because Wiccan and Speed don't exist. So
yeah, I believe their son Franklin is actually, I know that he has powers, but I believe he's like an Omega level like mutant. So that's another.
He's kind of like Professor X's son, right? Like who was like
the Legion guy.
Legion, yeah.
Wow, this all feeds into like a larger storyline. Maybe that's why they've been a little scared to make this movie before this. Like after the 2015 bomb, now they have so much work to do on the writing to make sure all the details line up in order to like have these kids and like feed this like feed back. And
but also like all those movies, like Fox completely like that's a different studio, and then like when Disney bought them, like there's a whole like Kevin Feige's like we're not going to disrupt our current plans for the MCU to ram them in. We're going to bring them in a way that feels natural. And I think because of the pandemic, things have gotten pushed back by a few more years than maybe people would have wanted them to. So regardless of like who they casted with the rest of the Fantastic Four, I think they've got off to a great start, and they will only get better if they get Javier Bardem on board, and then we'll see where they can go from there. But it's a great start to have Pedro Pascal on the team. Potentially, not officially. Yeah, we'll see.